Hey everyone, my name is Erica Labuzan Lopez, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a licensed professional counselor in League City, Texas. I am excited to be finally putting some videos up on YouTube. I've made content in many other places, some videos, some blogs, different things, some guest posts here and there. And starting a YouTube channel was one of my goals for 2020. I love YouTube. I'm a consumer of YouTube. Probably watch it a little more than I should, but I really do enjoy it. And having the ability to hear what other people think, just a range of professional videos, amateur videos, I really enjoy it. So I am interested in putting more content here. If you are interested in that, I would love if you would help me out and subscribe to the channel and maybe like some videos. That way they can get out to more people and I can see if this is something that people really want to learn more about. So help me out, subscribe, like the video. So one thing that I've been doing is writing and talking and doing some videos on marriage during COVID-19. So because I mainly work with couples, I think I have some good insights into what couples are struggling with right now, things that may pop up for different people. But I also wanted to open things up to people's questions that people have about how to handle different things in their relationships. And so what I did was I posted in several different social media places, different platforms, and asked what is something that you want to know about in regards to handling things in your marriage or relationship during this pandemic. I got a lot of really interesting questions, so I've got some videos lined up, I've got some blogs lined up, really excited and energized by thinking about some of these things, writing about some of these things. So I'm really grateful to have that opportunity and to share some of my thoughts with everybody. So one of the interesting questions that I got was all about communication, but really more, in my opinion, connection. So the person was explaining that she finds that her and her partner are both kind of sucked into their phones, that at the end of the workday, they just want to relax and notice that they're on their phones. And then how do we actually connect as partners? How do we start having conversations? What are some tools and techniques so that we're not just sitting on our phones? I love this question because I think that that's so true even without all of this going on. But I feel like even more so with all of this going on and the major adjustments that we're making to our daily lives, the phone is going to be an energy consumer. Like, it's going to be the place that a lot of people go for news, for work, for entertainment, for zonking out. Like, it's going to be the place to do a lot of those things. And so although I think that most of the time we're craving connection and human connection with our partner, I wonder if we might be kind of tired of being around that person for the whole day, right? And so I'm going to think that it's going to be even easier to find ourselves getting engaged online and in different communities online and having a harder time connecting in person, especially in a meaningful way and in a deeper way and about another subject other than all of the shit we're trying to figure out from day to day, moment to moment, as we're trying to manage this time in our lives, right? So, I think another point about this is when I read her question, I thought, we've now spent our entire day with our partner, and so the things that we would normally talk about at the end of the day, right? How was your day? How did this meeting go? What happened here? What'd you eat for lunch? Like, just the random things that we talk about, especially when that rejoining first happens at the end of the workday when we are both back at home. We literally already know everything they did that day, right? Like, we were there for it. We saw it. We were part of it. We ate lunch together. I already know what you ate for lunch, and I know you didn't like that salad. So, I think that there's even more reason to feel like we might need to escape from our partners at the end of the day. And so I invite everybody to kind of evaluate how that's been going in your own relationship, because that's going to look very different for each of us in each of our unique scenarios. But I would ask you to just kind of look at how that process is playing out in your own home and can we think about to the end of the day, or even the time that we're spending during the day together, in a bit of a different way, that maybe we can switch off of work mode, switch off of crisis mode, switch off of like WTF, what are we doing mode, into, okay, this is our time to connect like we would regularly. So I've got a few tips for you guys, some things I've been thinking about. Number one, I think it's really important to still schedule in the time to binge, veg, whatever it is that you need to do. So that might sound kind of weird, especially as I've kind of set up some thoughts for the rest of the video, but I actually think we really need that time. We need that time right now. I think we need a lot of time for a lot of things, and there's gonna be an incredible balance that's gonna be necessary, and also just so much room for grace and compromise and adjustments and flexibility and adaptability. And I know that these are words we're hearing a lot, but it's so true. We need time for work. We need time for self-care. We need time for planning. We need time to just be anxious. We need time to just be sad, but we also need time to just be and not really be engaged in all these other things. If you can do that with your partner, I think it's even better. Schedule time to be on your phones, playing, Candy Crush or whatever the kids are doing these days, right? Schedule that time and sit next to each other on the couch and just be there together, right? You don't have to be conversing to be still engaged with each other. There is power, I think, in just being close to each other, being on the couch, perhaps holding hands or having our legs touch or our arms touch. Of course, if you feel comfortable with that and safe, but that's something I would really suggest doing, and also giving yourself permission to do that. But again, a timer, right? Some boundaries. Schedule the time, and I do recommend setting a timer. Right now, we may be so overwhelmed, we may be so just feeling like we need that downtime, that can kind of get away from us, and then we've lost a whole night, or a whole afternoon, or a whole day, or whatever it might be. And I think that's okay. I think it's okay if that's something that you need and you're able to get kind of back out of that, as long as you don't get stuck there. But I think that we perceive we need so much of that, or that feels good in that moment, and so we continue doing it, and at a certain point that's not going to feel good. It's going to feel worse that we've sat on our phones or vegged out for too long, and it kind of got in the way of us doing other things that would be more healthy or more helpful to changing our state or changing our mood or helping us think about things in a different way or connecting, right, with our partners. So that would be my caveat, and you might want to play with different time limits. For me, I think 30 minutes is probably adequate, but for you, that might not be enough time, or that might be too much time. I think it changes by day. That could be adequate time today, but maybe tomorrow I'm gonna need an hour. I don't know, and we're gonna have to just play with that, I think, and kind of pay attention to what's going on for us, and sharing that boundary with our partner so that we can kind of figure that out together. What do each of us need? And we can have a conversation about that, which I think working around those containers and those boundaries is good for your relationship anyway, right? So that's gonna be my first tip. Now, switching into tip number 2, which is gonna be sort of the opposite of tip number 1. It may feel, again, a little odd to kind of shift in these ways, but I think it's really important. So tip number 2 is actually to put your phone away in a separate room, in a basket, in a drawer, again, for a specific amount of time. So all the things that are coming from our phones, so many of them are wonderful, so many of them are anxiety provoking. I would like us to really think about our exposure to the news and to social media, and get an understanding that there's a place in which that's helpful, and there's a point at which we start seeing diminishing returns on that time, or that exposure. And so I think that, to be able to, and this is a technique I use with clients anyway, but to be able to set down those phones and not have a way to distract ourselves from the conversation, to distract ourselves maybe from getting vulnerable with our partners and sharing some scary stuff or some difficult feelings, or just laughing with our partners, right? Those phones and those notifications and that ability to reach down and just disengage from here and engage in here is really tempting, too tempting for most of us, because we are a bit addicted to our phones and they are reinforcing us to continue coming back to those phones. So go ahead and again agree on a time. You can set a timer perhaps on your microwave or through some other means where your phone is away. Now, I know in this time you might feel that communication with people through your phone is going to be especially important. You might feel like, and depending on your job or whatever other family situations you might have, that might be true. And so we can make concessions for that, and we can work within the rules here for individual situations. But more than likely, for the majority of us, if we put our phone away for 15 minutes or 30 minutes, or I would love to see for an hour, for the vast majority of people, if the person who texted us during that time doesn't get a response until 30 minutes later, we're going to be fine. They're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. Everybody's going to be fine. Likely that's not a life or death situation. Now, again, with the caveat that in this current climate, it might be. And so if that's something that you're not comfortable with, or you need to have perhaps 5-minute check-ins if you have a situation going on, then these are ideas that we can still, kind of work within the rules. But I would love for that to just be out of our minds. Again, if we need to do that for 10 minutes at a time, 15 minutes at a time, that's really all that would be necessary, I think. And then we can start extending that so that we can make room and make space. Part of the question, the original question was, what do we even talk about? Well, if we're sitting there on our phones, we're going to be sucked into whatever it is that we're consuming, and that's going to dictate what we're talking about. But without access to that, perhaps we can bring about other conversation, or we can think about things in a different way, or we can think about something we haven't even thought about, like in the last month, right? We can talk about something that's happening next year that we're looking forward to. We can talk about things we're missing that are really sad. I mean, we can just open that up and not have the phone as kind of a fallback that's pulling us out of that moment with our partners. So for me, that's going to be really, really important. Tip number 3, I would love to see people cooking together. Now I know, and I've gotten resistance on this idea before from some of my couples, and that's okay, that not everybody loves to cook. And you don't even necessarily need to do the cooking process together for this to be a fun idea, right? Like, you can explore different activities, and there's lots of ways to do that. We are currently kind of limited in places that we can go and physical activities that we can do, although I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But in terms of trying new things, I think cooking is a good way to explore that. You can still open up your creativity. You can still make decisions together and plan something together and try something new together. And a good way to do that is through something that right now I think a lot of us are seeing as a necessity. Oh my gosh, we have to cook at home. We have to figure out what we're going to eat. It's a lot, right? It's so stressful. And I agree. It's been stressful for me too. But just because we're stuck at home or we're cooking at home doesn't mean we can't have fun with what we're cooking. And I think this is an amazing opportunity to be able to do that and to find new recipes and to do something fun that's also necessary that you can explore with your partner. And if one person's the main person cooking, well, maybe you can teach the other person a little bit of your skills, or you can pick out the recipe together online. You can make the grocery list together. I think that it's a good way to figure out how do we do something that is essential, like eating, but also being able to work together with our partners and make it a little bit fun and be able to still explore and play and be creative. So that one I think is really, really great. I do think movement is important. So that's going to be tip number 4, move together. Some people are having a hard time staying at home all the time. That's been very anxiety provoking. People are starting to get a bit antsy or having the desire to move around. At the time I'm making this video, we are still able to go to parks and trails. We can go walking around parking lots. I do obviously encourage social distancing and not to be breaking any of the recommendations. That's not what I'm suggesting, but you can go with your partner and go on a hike together, walk around the neighborhood together, go explore a new neighborhood you've never been to, go do an exercise class at home together. You can stream that online or watch it on a live or take a class. There are lots of options for that right now. YouTube videos are good ones for that. So, don't feel like you can't engage in something that you need for yourself, but do it with your partner. And I think kind of doing that activity together can really bring you closer and can also give you something to talk about, right? How was this exercise for you? I think exercise is something not everybody, but most people kind of do on their own, especially if you have busy schedules and there's kids and there's the whole thing, right? So many people go to the gym on their own or different times during the day, but this is kind of a neat opportunity to see, oh wow, what is it my partner is doing physically to keep themselves healthy? What are they doing to move, to get to change their state, to get their energy flowing in different ways? Maybe I can learn something from them. We can certainly process kind of what that experience was like, working together or being together. What did that feel like in your body? I think it's an opportunity to understand each other better as well. So I think that you could really get a lot of value from engaging in something like that. Tip number 5, we're on to the infamous date night. I always say you never have to spend money to have a great date night. You don't have to go anywhere fancy. You don't have to do anything fancy to be able to have fun together, right? Which is really the point of date night, is kind of putting down our other stuff and making that space and that time to be together. That's really the most important part. So I do encourage, I know the date night is going to look very, very different for most of us. It's going to look just not like any other date night, probably. Maybe it's going to look exactly like every other date night, but I think most of us going to have this idea about getting dressed up, having a babysitter, having somebody with the kids, and going somewhere to do something. Obviously, that's going to be different. We can't go places, but we can still get dressed up, and I do encourage that. So, putting the kids to bed, having a late date night, having a date during the day if that's possible. There's gonna, again, it's gonna work differently for everybody given your different scenarios. But I think this would be a good time to explore what spending that time at home is like together, and getting dressed up for each other, and maybe cooking a fun meal or bringing in your favorite takeout, especially from a local restaurant, right? So there's wins all over the place here. And playing a board game, doing a puzzle together. It really doesn't matter, but I think carving out that time and making it special. If you do a puzzle every night, don't do a puzzle on date night. Do something different. You can even get dressed up and go to the movies. Go to the movies at your own house. Make popcorn, make it an event, roll out a red carpet. Get creative. There are a million things that you can do. And I think it's so important now, especially, to carve out time to date and not be so consumed with what's going on, or so in survival mode, in planning mode, in, okay, this is what we need to do next. Well, what we need to do next is enjoy each other's time and company and find ways for connection. So that's going to be huge, and I really, really recommend it. Tip number 6, and this one is kind of fun because, part of the original question again was, what are tools and techniques that we can use? So I'm all about bringing in tools, things that spark conversation or ideas. I love everything like that. I use it with a lot of my clients. All of these things I'm going to recommend are things I've used with clients and gotten really great results from. So I love bringing in conversation cards or conversation games. I think that it's important. Sometimes we get into the routine. Sometimes we just can't think of how to ask questions in a different way, or how to explore things with our partners other than what's currently happening, or the fight we had last week, or the thing we need to do next week, or the blah, 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 blah. Sometimes we get a bit stuck, I think, in present tense, and we forget about broadening that out. What is our future? What do we want our future to be? What do we value? What are things we're looking forward to in doing life together? What are our core values? There's a lot of other questions, and some can be fun and lighthearted. They don't all have to be so serious. But I think even in this time, bringing in some random, silly, goofy things, right? It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't need to be all, what are your most intimate thoughts and values? It doesn't have to all be that. It can be, you know, if you had $1 million to redo your house, what would you do? What's your ideas of that? Like, we can explore that in a way that's not action oriented and purely just dreaming about our futures, having a laugh, being silly, being goofy. But I think that also increases our emotional intimacy. So some of the tools I've got for you today, I'll link all these down below. Most of them were still available on Amazon at the time that I pulled the links, but you know, I'm not sure what's going to happen with shipping delays, but even so, you can access, I'm sure, some of these, or even find them if you are doing your essential shopping at Walmart or Target. So these are called Our Moments Couples. They actually have family ones. I think they have friends. There's a few different versions of this one. I pulled the couples one. So it's conversation starters for great relationships. And these are great. It does recommend ages 18 plus. Although most of the questions are pretty family friendly. You can play this with friends. Also, there's not too many questions that are too personal, shall we say, that, you know, it is recommended you can play this with another couple or several couples. So this is even something that you could use on date night, or you can set up some virtual meetings with friends, a happy hour, and pull some of these conversation cards and open this up to the other couples in your life. And kind of get a more broad sense, right? But these are great for really finding just different ideas, different questions. So if, you know, you're having trouble thinking of, well, we've been together for the last 7 days, 24/7, so I already know everything that's going on, right? But these are just fun. These take us out of this present moment and into a whole different space. So it's just an aid, it's just a tool. You don't have to buy it, but, you know, if you like things like this, I think you'll like it. This one is also really fun. So similar idea, it's called How Game Are You? And it is the Couples Intimacy Edition. You can play this with other people. This one does have a bit more intimate type of questions. Again, it's really nothing too spicy. There are games if you want to do that, and I can link a couple down below. But this one is really fun, and it also has the cards will tell you sort of the level of spiciness, so you can kind of decide who you want to play this one with. But same concept, it's a little game in here that gets you just really conversing with your partner, some truth or dare style questions, just some different things. Again, shaking it up, making sure that we are finding new topics and different things to think about. So really like this one too. The last kind of conversation spark ideas is going to be this book. It's actually a journal. It's a couple's journal. It's called The Year of Us. And the idea is you do one question a day to spark fun and meaningful conversations. You can buy this at any time of the year. It does have questions, 365 questions in it. But you can just kind of go down and do several at a time. You don't have to do only one a day. And there is space to write down these answers. So you can do this either together as you're chatting about it, kind of write down some of the ideas, or you can just kind of read through the questions, discuss it. For a lot of people, they like that better. So it's totally up to you how you want to use the book. You can use all these tools in different ways. That's what my husband and I are doing. We are reading the questions, discussing them, and because we're minimalists, we intend to pass the book on to another couple when we are done with it. So we're also getting some use out of it that way. But this one's great. I recommend it to several clients, and people are really having a lot of fun with this book. So again, don't have to buy it. You can look up some of these questions online, or questions that would be similar to any of the questions in any of these packs. So you do not need to buy a thing. Don't feel like you need to do that. But what I like about having a tool is that it encourages me to actually get it out, touch it, and engage with whatever the tool is, as opposed to, you know, finding the resource online. For me, and this is just for me, you may be different, I have a harder time connecting with something that's not as tangible, that I can use directly, and that sort of serves as a reminder for, hey, this is important. Make sure that we're doing these questions, right? Make sure that we're opening up these conversations. So again, totally up to you. So last idea, number 7, is going to be about books. I find that a lot of people are turning towards books in many different ways right now. It's a great time to read, although I find myself busier some days than I ever am on a normal basis. I have found time to engage in reading in a way that I haven't gotten to in a long time. And I've heard that from other people and seen a lot of people talking about that online. So I think that this may be a good time. If you don't like tangible books, then Audibles or digital downloads might be a good option for you. Again, me and only me. I am a physical book person. I love holding a book in my hand. So again, all of these were available on Amazon at the time that I pulled the links, but many sources that you can use to find some of these, and they actually may be physical copies of these, again, in those stores that are currently open while you're doing your grocery shopping. So this one is from John Gottman. He is amazing. He and his wife, Julie Gottman, have written several books for couples and on couples therapy and about improving our relationships and building trust. So I would highly recommend anything that they've written. This one is my favorite to start with if you've never read anything from them, because it really lays out these principles that they've put together based on years and years of research, longitudinal research that they've done in sort of distinguishing the things that differentiate successful couples from couples who get divorced. Very interesting read, very easy to read. There's practical things in here. There's some assessments, there's some exercises. So this one I highly recommend. You really can't go wrong. Pretty much anything you may be facing in your relationship can in some way be addressed through the techniques that are discussed in this book. So it's a great place to start. One that probably many of you have heard about before, the 5 love languages. So this one is very interesting because I have couples all the time, they come in and my love language is this, their love language is this, and then I'll ask them, okay, well, have you read the book? What did you take from it? Once we start exploring that idea a bit more in detail, I've learned that, and not just with clients, with friends and family too, that people have taken the quiz online or think that they know what their love language is. And the quiz is available for free online, so that might be something you want to look at. It's also in the back of the book. I personally recommend reading the book because I think it outlines and will help you dive into the techniques in a bit of a better way, in a way that helps people understand why we're talking about love languages and why they are important and how to implement some things, which I think is something that some people miss. I think they perceive they've understood the concept of the love language, but I find there's really a lot of confusion about it, and reading the book can give you some of that background so that I think there's just a lot of aha moments people have as we discuss this particular concept in therapy and with my friends, and you can really get a lot of value out of this. Another thing I really enjoy about this particular book, and let me find it for you. So at the end of each of the chapters that details and outlines each love language and kind of how it operates and why it works, there is, what would you call this? A summary. There's a summary of what happened in the chapter and what was discussed. And so after you've read the book, you can always just come back to the summary. But I actually noticed that even as I was reading the book, that I found these summaries particularly helpful. They kind of get right to the point. They make it straightforward, but also there's tips in these that I didn't even pick up from the chapter. The chapter kind of describes a situation, an example, and explores that and that sort of thing. But the little tips at the back, they really give you some tangible ideas and help me realize even some things I didn't get from the chapter. So I do highly recommend this one. I think it's a great read, a great buy, and it's, again, short, easy to understand. Last one, Hold Me Tight by Dr. Sue Johnson. I really love this one as well. Some research-based things in here, which is really helpful, I think. It makes it, I think having research and having a basis of knowledge for why we're doing what we're doing is super helpful. It really, I think it helps people feel more confident that you can trust the information in the book. So she goes through some of that and kind of sets up why she's looking at relationships the way that she is. This one I find, so it gives you 7 conversations for a lifetime of love. There's some good prompts in here. There's definitely some things that will make you think. And that's one of the things I appreciate about this book. It dives into things, in my opinion, a little bit on a deeper level. It is really looking at some attachment types of things and gets you thinking about some of your family stuff and why we are the way we are and how our experiences have shaped who we are in our current relationships and how we show up for those relationships. So, you know, this is written for, it's not written for therapists, it's written for all of us, right, including me, to better understand our relationships and why we get kind of stuck in the cycles that we do. And so it's easy to understand, it's interesting, it's definitely, it makes you, like I said, kind of pause and think a little bit more than maybe some of the other books from my personal experience and experience of my clients. But I find if you're really wanting to dig into that work and figure out what's going on in your relationship, this one's a great one. You can read any of these books together as a couple. You can even do that out loud. You can each read a chapter and then discuss. There's lots of ways that you can use these books to connect with your partner, engage with them, understand each other better, and have more meaningful conversations, which is, in my opinion, the meat of the question that was posed at the beginning. How do I get off my phone and actually talk to my partner and communicate with them? So I really hope that these tips have helped you look at different ways to engage with your partner during this pandemic. This is certainly an unprecedented and unexpected turn of events, I think, for most people. And while I find that there are challenges that have been presented, and the first weeks were like, what the hell are we doing for most people, myself included, I think that honestly what I've seen is that this is an opportunity to work on those issues that were really already present. You know, nothing that I've heard from friends or family or clients has been really new or earth-shattering information. It's really been outlining, I think, and highlighting the issues that we already had present. So if you were already having trouble in your relationship, this is a great time to explore things with each other and take notice of things that work well and things that don't work well and find opportunities to change them now. So I hope that you are enjoying this series about marriage during COVID-19. I'm going to be doing some more videos. I have those ready to go and outlined. But if you do have questions, I would love to hear them so that I can make more content and be able to address the things that you guys actually want to know about. So please leave me some questions below, like the video, share it if you found it helpful, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.